Hello, our amazing, wonderful students, friends, not only around the state of Texas, but the entire globe, the world. We so appreciate your business at Champion School of Real Estate. And I thank you as the CEO, founder, owner, Champion School of Real Estate. And as you know, part of your the word lagniappe comes to mind, the Cajun French word where you get a little bit extra. We always like to do our monthly uh, YouTube channel interviews with superstars from around the state of Texas, if not the USA, that graduated from Champion School of Real Estate, have an affiliation with Champion School of Real Estate with our CE or licensing and our designation courses in real estate loan appraisal inspection. So this particular interview today will be on our Champion School of Real Estate YouTube channel right away, if not this afternoon, tomorrow. We are so excited to have so many subscribers, but mainly we just very much appreciate your choosing to be a champion. And today I am very honored, excited to be able to introduce to you Dr. Stephen Kaufman. Dr. Kaufman, there he is on camera. It is a joy to see you. We are Facebook friends, and I follow you that way. And yet today we get to have you to ourselves and ask great questions of an amazing entrepreneur. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Rita. You know, all these kind words you're saying about me. It's an honor for me to be on the phone on a podcast with you. I mean, and all that you've accomplished. 40 years is no easy task, and what an amazing anniversary for you in Champion School of Real Estate.
Thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. And yet, once I give your introduction, our students, our friends are going to be amazed at the person that I'm talking with today. And I'm going to start right out with the most obvious, and that is that you are the founder of ZeusLending.com, the leading provider of real estate financing online internet. And that is just huge. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
you are the one that brought that together. How absolutely incredible it is. You have so much behind you as far as education. And if you'll give me just 1 second, I want our audience to know just how amazing you are. First of all, you were born in Brooklyn. You relocated to Baytown with your family at a young age.
Mhm.
You went to University of Houston. You have your CPA. You have a master's in economics and entrepreneurship from University of Houston. You're also on the Dean's Board at University of Houston in the business entrepreneurship area.
Mhm.
You went to Harvard Business School and studied strategic marketing management. And then that wasn't enough. So you went to Oxford University, got your PhD in psychology, but you also studied global private equity. You have so much behind your name. It is just pretty impressive. But I'm going to now move to something that is so very impressive, and that is United States Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. That is crazy exciting.
Thank you.
I'm amazed, honored.
Thank you.
Which president was it?
This was under President Obama, and it was for volunteer work that I did for a foundation that we started called the Fanatical Change Foundation, that we ran for. I volunteered for almost 10 years for that foundation. I mean, I've been volunteering all over the place in different things, but the amount of time I put in.
Now you started that.
You're
the founder.
I'm one of the co-founders. Yeah, I was one of the co-founders. I was the main driving volunteer and monetary force for the organization for about 10 years. And we did major miracles in the city of Houston that we're really proud of.
Well, correct me at any point today if I quote you incorrectly. However, we had a wonderful local magazine that had written a great article about you, and at that point, you had raised over $400,000, and all of that money goes locally to people in need, like, right away,
Yes, the difference.
and
What we did, I'll explain it this way. We would plan Houston's largest Halloween event. What we would plan the event for 8 to 10 months, and people would often ask us, well, who are we going to help from the event? And we would always say this was the most exciting part for the volunteers, was we never knew who we were going to help until the week of the event, because our event, which was a very large party at either Minute Maid or Dynamo or some other large venue, we'd have 1,000 to 1,500 people who would attend our Halloween event. And all of the money that we received, every dollar in was a dollar out to a family that was showcased in the news the week of our event for suffering a violent crime or a tragic accident. So imagine we're having a large event party at Minute Maid Park on the Friday before Halloween, and on that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even during the day, there's been a stabbing, a burning, a shooting, a drunk driving incident, and we screened those families with the help of HPD and other emergency services, and we hosted the events in the honor of those families, without the family actually knowing we're doing this, because they're in the deepest depth of their situation.
it just happened.
It just happened.
Yeah.
We'd host the event in the honor of, let's say, 10 families. Then the next day, we would take all the money we raised the night before, and with the help of a lot of emergency services in the city of Houston, we would go to each family and we would deliver all the money that we raised the night before in the form of goods and services, paying for funerals and daycare and therapy and language lessons and anything you can imagine, where we could try to correct, to the best of our ability, the wrongness of their tragedy. And then we would video record it so people the next night, within 24 hours, could go to our website and see a family who cannot afford to pay for a funeral or cannot afford to pay for a tombstone for their murdered child. We would do all of that with the money from other Houstonians, and we were basically a steward for people who would donate. We started the foundation on this premise that everybody would donate if they knew it was totally transparent, if they could be connected somehow with the people that they were donating to, seeing where the money went, and they knew what happened right away, where it would really make a difference. So we did that, and that article for 400,000 came out pretty early. We gave out about $1.5 million, which was all money we received from Houstonians like yourself and like everyone else listening, and we would record it. And so our litmus test or our transparency was, we're never going to help a family that's not on the news, and they have to be on the news the week or so before our event. And the exciting thing for us is we would be planning these parties 8-10 months in advance. And like I said in the beginning, people would say, well, who are you going to help? And we'd always say, well, we really don't know. The tragedy hasn't happened yet. But when it does happen, we're going to actually be doing a mitzvah, a blessing for those families when it does occur.
I am absolutely so thankful and impressed that you have that particular charity that you started. And everyone listening, I'm sure, would love more information on it. And I'm just going to say to them, if they want to jot that down in chat when they see this, we'll get the information from you if they would like to donate next time.
Thanks.
I love the transparency of all the money is going right here in the hometown area for people in need. And you know where your money is going. It's not going offshore somewhere and you have no idea. So what an amazing charity. I congratulate you.
Thank you.
Little wonder that you got the Houston Astros Hometown Hero, City of Houston Humanitarian Award right there with Mattress Mac, and Lululemon Modern Day Man. Wow. That is really impressive as well.
Thank you.
You are
You're making me blush.
I haven't even started yet. You just have an incredible amount of accolades and honors. I think, and I'm going to tell you something very honest, And that is what got my attention is not that I knew you were the founder of Zeus Lending, which is just amazing in itself, but it is your love and desire on the physical side to just challenge yourself physically. So on Facebook recently, I saw that you had just completed the summit to Mount Kilimanjaro. And I thought, what else can this man do? How but before I go further, not only that, you summited Mount Fuji, you trekked to Everest Base Camp, certainly completing Houston Marathon. You ran with the Bulls in Spain. Tell me, what is it about that side of you that motivates you to be so physically not just fit, but challenged?
I think I was a fat kid and a poor kid, and I was, as an adult, I was in a seminar once, and someone said, this is not the sexy answer, but this is the real answer. They said that a lot of the decisions we've made about ourselves, we have no evidence of those. They were usually made when we're children, and we've grown and lived as adults based on these assessments about ourselves that really we have no validity to whatsoever. We just labeled ourselves, and we own the label for the rest of our lives. And I realized one of the things going on in my life was that I'd consider myself not to be very physically not gifted, but not very physical, and
Not a natural
yeah,
gift
not
on
a
the
natural,
physical side.
right, not a natural athlete, and I realized I'd just been labeling myself that way. That what I had confused for talent with a lot of other people, they were just I always assumed everyone else was born talented, and I undermined all the work they must have put in to being where they are. And then in this workshop I was in, I realized that I'd been labeling myself as someone not talented physically, not capable. And I took an experiment on with myself that what if I just put in the work like I was talented? What if I put in the work like I was gifted? What if I put in the work like I can do all these things? And I have been able to do them. Probably the biggest accomplishment that people usually reference physically for me is that I was a competitive power lifter in my 30s, and I won 4 world championships and set a world record. In 2015 was my last world record. And when I just got back from Everest, I just set a Guinness World Record at Everest Base Camp for the highest altitude obstacle course race. And we did an ultra marathon down the mountain, a 45-mile marathon down the mountain. And again, those are things that if you would have asked me when I started, I would have thought, okay, I'm not a runner. I'm not gifted. This is not for me. I have all these things I can tell you why that is not something I should be doing. But I realized that if I train like and act like and do all the things like someone who is a gifted athlete, I'll become one. And I've become one, to be as succinct as I could say.
I want to make sure that our students heard exactly that you are a 4-time world champion power lifter and 2015 world record holder. And I know you've also had some other championships like arm wrestling championship.
Mm-hmm.
You certainly can no longer say that you don't have the physical ability and gift.
Right.
You've most definitely proven to yourself you can do whatever you want. I'm going to springboard off that. Your wonderful message that you just gave, which I have to be honest with you, makes me also think all the time I'm saying to myself, oh, I'm great at walking. I could never do a marathon, run a marathon. But all of those messages we tell ourselves, you have totally proven are incorrect.
Yeah.
You have proven you can do whatever you put your mind to.
I think we've in history, as far back as we can record, and in modern day with the social media age, we can see so many people doing extraordinary things. Everything from Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile, and everyone said it was impossible, to
Absolutely.
today people just doing. There are people who climb Mount Kilimanjaro who have no legs. They make the entire trek on their hands, or there are people who are blind or have other physical ailments who train for these things. I think the answer to business or physical success is doing the work that's required to get you there. The stuff no one wants to talk about because it looks sexy and exciting on social media or in your bank account, or your car that you have, or your house you live in. But the truth is, there's a lot of work that has to be done before you get there. And I love that there's a meme circulating where you see a little tip of an iceberg, and it's what everybody sees, but you don't see the part underneath the surface of the water, which is all the grit and the determination, resilience, desperation, depression, and all the other things that people who are trying to be successful end up having to overcome. And I honestly believe anyone can overcome those things. They just are telling themselves they can't, like you said about the marathon. Mindset.
For sure, mindset. You have so many very flourishing companies, and when I say flourishing, Inc. magazine put you in as the 37th fastest growing financial service in the USA. So everything is definitely based on facts, not wannabe, could have been, that kind of thing. I look at you and I look at all of your successes in business and physical success that you've achieved. How did you and why did you start out wanting to be an entrepreneur? Do you know what motivated you to that particular direction?
How far back do you want me to go?
Oh, way back.
Okay.
Way back.
You can edit this out later if you want. But
Okay.
the real story is that my grandmother, my Bubby, had cancer when I was a child, and we lived in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm one of 5 children, and plus my parents, so 7 of us. We lived off of my grandmother, as was customary back in those days. My grandmother subsidized my parents. My father had a learning disability and was at best a security guard or a mechanic, but spent most of his adult life as a janitor at Foley's, now Macy's.
This is so inspiring.
And my mother didn't work. She was taking care of 5 children. When my grandmother got cancer, she moved to Houston to go to MD Anderson, where she thought she would be for 6 months. And my family loaded up all our belongings in a car, and 5 children and 2 adults, and we drove to Houston, this new land, because my parents needed to be near my grandmother, A, to take care of her, and B, for her subsidies for our living expenses. And about 3 months after being in Houston, my grandmother passed, and my parents could not afford to get back to New York, to Brooklyn. So we, in essence, suffered a house fire where we lost everything. We had no belongings other than what was in the car that we brought. And my parents couldn't afford to rent an apartment any longer in Houston. So the cheapest thing they could afford was a trailer in a very rural part of Baytown, Texas, a city none of us had ever heard of. And we moved to a trailer in the middle of nowhere in Baytown. And I grew up most of my life. I usually say I can compete with any person's poor story, including any third world poor story. And I'll give you a sense of what I mean. I almost 80% of my life until of college age, I didn't have any electricity. So I don't know how else to say it, but I didn't have electricity. I didn't have a telephone until I was in the 9th grade. My mother made most of my clothes, or they were donated, or my closest siblings is a girl, and my mother made her clothes. And I jokingly say that I can button a blouse from both directions. And only women typically know what I mean when I say that. Men almost have no idea.
I know what you mean.
Yes. So I can button a blouse in both directions because I often had to wear my sister's clothes, my sister's shoes. And so, without having any electricity, having a telephone, with having, the poorest of living conditions, I grew up really poor, and I craved, even as a child, stability. And I could go deeper into the story and the tragedies and that my family encountered during this time that were just big obstacles in my life that were very influential. And when I was in the ninth grade, Rita, I'm the youngest of five, and all four of my older siblings did what everybody does in a trailer park. They get tattoos, number one, and number two, they drop out of high school and go to work. And so when I was in the ninth grade of high school, at my request and my mother, zero resistance, my mother, and I'll never forget this day, my mother came barefoot to the school, because I remember noticing underneath the desk of the principal that my mother was actually sitting there barefoot. And my mother withdrew me from school because I wanted to go to work. And why would she be willing to let me do that? Partly because of the mentality where I lived, that going to work was better than being in school. School wasn't going to get you anything. But also that meant I was going to make my own income, and my mother and father wouldn't be supporting me at that time. I'd be contributing, not taking. And so it was the next step in my evolution. So sure enough, I was 15. I didn't finish the ninth grade of high school, and I started working like my brothers and my sisters and my father. And one day I was sitting in a trailer in the middle of the day. I'd been working 3 jobs, and I was sitting in a trailer in the middle of the day where there were about 10 to 15 other men who were at different ages who were drinking and smoking. I can still feel the crushed beer cans under my feet that people had never picked up. And there was a guy coughing so loud. Today we would have said he definitely had COVID, but he was coughing so loud. And there was so much smoke. If you even opened your mouth, you would feel like coughing. And I remember looking around at all these people who looked like they were working really hard. My father's the hardest working person I have ever met. My first memory of him is with a name tag, a Foley's name tag on his work uniform. And I remember thinking, my plan is really, really crappy. I'm never going to outwork any of these people. I'm around people who continuously work hard, and they're all in the same place I am. So it obviously, what I thought was going to be the secret sauce to getting me the heck out of this place was a failure. That 2 years in, that this will never work. And which often happens to people in very poor surroundings, whether you're in the inner city ghetto or, a rural trailer park or farm environment. Very rarely do people escape that socioeconomic bracket. And I was very blessed for kind of having a divine moment, if you will. I felt alone in that trailer. I felt like my plan was ruined. I jeopardized high school to do this. And I realized there's nothing I'm doing that's going to get me out of this place. And I thought, what's the one thing I could do that they're not doing, if there's anything left that I could do to get me the hell out of here? And it occurred to me like a blink, just a flash, that the only thing I could do that they're not doing is I could go get an education. None of these people have these people have gone to college. They work hard and they're very dedicated to their craft, but none of them have actually gone to get formal education.
Not educated.
So I left the trailer, truly, and I rolled in junior college. And then obviously I rolled in the University of Houston for my accounting degree. And I chose accounting partly because my grandfather was an accountant, but also because I understood that accounting was a very consistent, very stable career, that I would never have instability. I'd always have a job and a paycheck, and never have the uncertainty that I grew up with, like so many of us who are probably listening have experienced. I wanted to be done with that part of my life. And so I became an accountant and a CPA, and that laid a very good foundation for the rest of my education. And even as last year, as you mentioned, I completed Oxford's Global Private Equity program, because I believe education implemented, not education alone, education implemented is a true key to success. And I like mixing, common sense and education with peers like you, Rita, and people who are really successful and getting to know them, with formal education and finding out what's new and what's current. So I'm trying to balance both of those, and I will for the rest of my life. One of my bucket list items actually is to spend more on education in a year than I spend on all my other bills together. Every expense I have, I want to spend more on education in a year than I spend on all of those. I will accomplish that eventually. Not now, but eventually.
What a remarkable story. What a story of hope. What a story of taking what you observed and figuring out what is it they don't have. And yet to be self-motivated to go forward and do what you did is so inspiring. It
Thank
is
you.
the story that we all need to hear all the time. We like to say, take at least 1% of your annual income, use it for education. I hope people do that, but you've taken it many times that amount, percentage wise, to educate yourself.
Mm.
I have to believe that your family is extremely impressed, extremely proud of what you personally did. I know that it took a lot of, and the old fashioned word I want to use is gumption, to do what you did. And that says volumes for the person that you are inside, especially not only making money, but then starting, for example, the wonderful charity that you did on top of that. So, at what point did you decide to go into lending? And how did you choose your brand? And what what bottom line steps did you take in order to be an entrepreneur? Can you give us a little insight into
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
Growing
sure.
your brand?
Sure. You asked three questions or two or three
I
questions there.
did.
I'll get,
I
I think,
did. I'll
I, th-
start over.
no, no, I got them. I think I got them. But with your permission, I'd love to go back to say something about my family. Because
Please do.
if you're listening and you are in a family where everyone's the same and you're trying to escape that trajectory that we're all on, everybody, whether you're from a successful family or not, um, we're all in this certain trajectory that we are trying to make our own way. And I can tell you, it was tough trying to communicate with my family when I was trying to go a different direction. Um, and for several years, it was hard to get them to buy in. They would treat me differently. But I will tell you, again, I'm the youngest of five. I really did transform. What I do for my daughters and what I've done for my family for sure is the biggest accolade I could ever own. All this other frou-frou stuff is good for Wikipedia, but it's meaningless. My parents moved out of the trailer park. My siblings moved out of the trailer park. Both of my older brothers started their own company they still run today. They're very successful in their own right. All of this occurred. Both of my sisters went back to college. All of this occurred because somebody made it out who showed them it was possible.
Someone cared.
Yeah, someone cared. Someone showed that it was possible, that you can do it, and they've all done it. And what an amazing! I mean, all this other stuff is great, but I mean, what I've done for them, I mean, I can get emotional about it right now. It truly made a major difference in
It
their life.
makes me, yeah, it makes me emotional because some families might look at what you've done and they might very well be resentful. So, not listen to what your particular advice or direction or notice what you've done. But to their credit, look what you allowed others to excel at. And it's
Uh,
very remarkable, very
they, they,
amazing.
I appreciate you saying that. Your question about entrepreneurship.
Yes. When did
So
you get that
I
desire?
never, I never, even though I was working in public accounting during the day and finishing my accounting degree at night because I was a working student, um, um, I, I never and have never considered myself an entrepreneur. And I make the distinction because an entrepreneur, by definition, is a risk taker. And being that, I've lived on my own since I'm 17 and I didn't have a cavalry or a backstop or a father or an uncle I could call for money. If I wasn't successful, it was only up to me, like so many people who were listening to this. So I needed to choose a career that was going to give me some stability, that if I worked hard, I knew I was getting paid. That was accounting was my first choice, but real estate right away became another option. I'll dig into that. But I never associated myself as an entrepreneur because an entrepreneur is a risk taker. And I was never and have never considered myself a risk taker in the regard that other people do. I feel like I have to I guess investments or calculated investments. Is there risk? There's a risk to, driving down the street, obviously. So risk is not unavoidable in life, but in business, I believe it is substantially avoidable. if you are making an investment, understand the potential outcome and the risk of the outcome not being fulfilled. I know it's a small nuanced thing, but to be an entrepreneur means you're risking maybe sometimes at all, or you're going blindly in with hope as a strategy. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, doesn't. I would much rather invest in myself as an education, like we talked about, going to courses like at Champions and learning from people who've already been there, not trying to reinvent the wheel myself. So get as much education as I can by investing in that. And then whatever business or opportunity I'm looking at, investing in that. Because when you step back and you think of something like an investor versus an entrepreneur can be blindly passionate, ignorant, reckless, work from their heart, maybe not always from their mind. And obviously, we know statistically that 99% of entrepreneurs fail in their very first year. That's a startling statistic. How many investors fail in their first year? I don't know. But I can tell you it's not 99% of them. And so I've always felt, since being a young man, I should rely more, keep a strategy as, what am I investing in? What do I expect to get in return? And what's the risk if it doesn't work out?
Those are amazing points, that you don't go into an investment blindly. You do your homework, you put your plan together, you use everything that you've learned in order to lay everything out as succinctly as possible. And therefore, it reduces your risk, it
Yes.
reduces your fear. And these points are so very, very intricate that I'm hoping our students, and I know they will, listen rather to the podcast tomorrow. The day after our wonderful interview, we will have you on our Real Estate Superstars Today podcast, because you've made incredible points, as you, I'm sure, will continue to do. But I have to ask you, was there a defining moment when you realized that Dr. Stephen Kaufman is a success? Was there an event that might have happened?
Yeah, great question. I can't, the answer is no, because I still haven't yet firmly defined what success will look like for me in my life. If you ask, 10 people, you'll get 10 answers. I like the answer freedom, as in choosing to do what you want or
Mhm.
when you want. I like that answer. It's attractive. It's common. Is it a dollar amount? Is it I don't know. Is it an accolade? I don't know yet what success looks like for me, because I feel like I'm still living life and experiencing life, so because I haven't made a firm definition, I don't feel like I'm a success based on what most people would define as successful. I don't consider myself that. I feel like I'm just doing what everyone else should be doing or would be doing.
Do you mind if I pop in here and say, from my perspective, and those that are watching and listening to us, receiving the U.S. Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award, that absolutely is a defining moment for anyone.
Thank you.
And working as hard as you did to receive all of your um, powerlifting national as well as worldwide champion awards, that's pretty defining. But the way you answered it tells me that there's a lot more that's going to happen with Dr. Stephen Kaufman and his business as an entrepreneur. So, do you take time out for yourself? Is it all work, no play? Do you combine the two? How does that work for you?
I think life is definitely a balance, as we all know. Sometimes there's a blend, and you do blend things together. I try as much as possible to do the work. I don't. If I were an artist, and when I was younger, I was an artist, I always equate it to this. If I was painting a big canvas or making something out of clay, and I spend hours and hours doing it, women would think I'm sexy. Men would think I'm really passionate about my art and I'm crazy. I'm going to be a starving artist and blah blah blah. I mean, people would endure me and love the fact that I'm so dedicated to my art and so pure. Now imagine that I am an artist, but my art is real estate and investing, and my canvas is whatever building I'm acquiring or remodeling something, or I am an artist, and so I work like an artist. I work on what I'm passionate about and what I'm really interested in. And when you say take time for myself, sometimes the work the work itself, um, that I'm doing, um, sometimes the work I'm doing is like art, and so I don't it's therapeutic. I'm not doing it because I feel obligated. I don't have to do it. I get to do it. And so it is like therapy for me. Some of the trips that I've gone on and the adventures I've gone on, it's like therapy. And to I'm from the city. I love the country and I love seeing landscapes, but I love concrete and I love the concrete jungle. And that's where I'm most at home. But every once in a while being outside and being in nature is really valuable and it recharges me. I never want it when I'm going, but when I'm there, I'm thinking, thank God I did this. Um, and I think it's a balance. And do I make time for myself? Of course. I mean, you have to recharge your
But you
battery.
would have to in order to achieve all of those physical, honors that you've achieved. And I would have to ask, I know that you're often asked, well, how did you move up to all of these different pinnacles in your career and also in your personal life? Do you sit down at the beginning of the year and say, this year, my big goal is to get to the summit of Kilimanjaro? Or does it just happen naturally? Do you write that down and then obviously train for that? How does that come together with all of your pinnacles?
I think for business and for some of these personal physical achievements, I do plan. I love New Year's Day. I think the cleansing of that and the restarting of that's really powerful. And I definitely spend the end of the year thinking about what I have accomplished that I'm proud of, and what I think could be better, and what I'm going to do the next year. When I was younger, those plans were very elaborate and I had a lot of hypothetical assumptions and I'm going to do all this and do all that. As I've gotten older, I realized that a lot of that's not necessary, not because I've already done some things and have a better foundation, but that having less is more when it comes to goals and achievements. And it helps me focus on what's most important. What do I really want to grow? You know, we own a lending business, but we own our Zeus Equity Group, which is our commercial investment company. And we have to decide what are we going to do this year? Are we going to acquire more assets, or are we going to hold tight with the rising interest rates? We're in the healthcare business. We own a lot of emergency rooms around Houston and their real estate. Do we open another one, or do we hold tight? Sitting back and thinking about these one or two or big goals, I have found has become a lot more efficient in my life. And I think a lot of people listening would feel a lot more relaxed if they were trying not to pressure themselves. When I became a real estate investor as a parallel, when I was 20 years old, actually, I was given some mentorship from a stranger, and he said, "Look, I know you're going to want to buy every house you see, but don't do that. You only need to buy 1 to 2 amazing houses a year, 1 to 2 amazing deals a year." And I was 20. He promised me, you're going to blink your eyes, you're going to be 30, then you're going to be 40, and if you just buy 2 a year, you'll be really happy. And that advice changed my life, and it changed my daughter's life, and it changed my siblings' life, because I did just look for 1 or 2 gold mines a year, and it took the pressure off of me. So I would answer your question. Yes, I plan. I also, as a hack, you didn't ask me this, but I feel like it does help people a lot. So I would be remiss if I didn't say it. I have worked on Sunday evening. My week starts on Sunday night at about 6 p.m. It has for more than 20 years. I hate to age myself like that, but for more than 20 years, I have worked Sunday evening. I know I don't want to bore you with some math, but let me just say it this way. If I work 4 hours on Sunday evening, 4 times a month, so 4 + 4 × 4, that would be 16 hours. That's 2 business days a month I'm working that any of my competition's not working. Any of my peers are not working. That's 2 days a month. In a year, that means I've worked 24 days a month. And typically, 24 days a year extra by only working from 6 to 10 on a Sunday evening, getting my week started, thinking about my goals, thinking about what I need to delegate out to get back in. So when I walk in on Monday morning, I'm ready to go a million miles a minute, and everyone else is kind of trying to catch up to me.
They're finding their way.
And so I have done that. So in a year, I put in 24 extra days of work compared to anyone else.
Mhm.
There are only 20 work days in a month. So that means in 1 year, I've actually worked technically a month and 4 days more than any of my peers. When you've done that for 20 years, it gives you a little bit of a head
Pays
start.
off.
Yeah, it does pay off. And so I highly
My
recommend.
husband, Henry, would watch me come home after a full week at Champion School of Real Estate, growing my company, my national company now. And there were things I would do Saturday and Sunday. You made a point that I wanted to come back and make as well. When you love what you do, it isn't work.
Mhm.
And at this point in my life, people will say, "Well, when are you going to retire?" And my answer is, why would I want to do that when I love what I do?
Yeah.
So when you love what you do, working on Sunday night is fun.
Yeah.
It's getting prepared. It's all the great things you'll be able to do on Monday morning. It's a whole different mindset. People that are new in the business that come in and say, "Well, how many days a week do I need to work?" We tell them, "Well, you're brand new, so you should really plan to work 7 days a week to get started and really work in your business in order to have a business." Um, I'm personally curious to be the leader with online real estate financing as you are at Zeus. When did that whole wonderful creative thought process hit you? I really want to concentrate on online lending. That
Oh, good.
is so hot. That is so amazing that you did that. Do you recall when you had that moment?
Yeah, I do, and I have a bunch of real estate agents to thank for it. Actually, um, so in 2000, we started doing lending around the late 90s, and formally in the name of brand Zeus. You asked me earlier, how do we select the brand and make the market? We were looking for a name that people would be short, so people would remember it, strong, so we can make a brand behind it, and something people would think they have heard before. And so Zeus was available, so we took it, and we just tried to continuously brand the brand Zeus as consistently as we can for a long time. And over time, it pays off. Obviously, there's no bad branding, no bad advertising. It's just how long will it take to, as you know, for it to pay off. So um, I think in 2002-ish, we were generating a lot of our business from outside loan officers. The typical loan officer is calling on your agents. I even brought Rita. I even personally have brought pizza to some of your lunches. Actually,
Thank
um,
you.
it was years ago, but I did it, and
Yeah.
I remember in 2002 thinking all of our agents can be pretty fickle because everybody in the transaction is rating hoping that the loan officer can get this job done the way they said they're going to get it done. And here you have this agent who's been working with a buyer for months and months and months, maybe years, driven them around endlessly on the weekend and on the evenings, showed them way too many houses than they should have. Finally they made an offer, finally it got accepted, and then they're going to hand all of that hard work over to a loan officer, hoping that that person can deliver on what they said. And what a stressful situation for that agent. So I used to always commiserate with the agent. Wow, I don't even know if I could do that. And then all the fallout that could occur. And so in 2002, I realized it's stressful for them, stressful for us. I don't want to be in this situation any longer. I don't want them to depend on us for what we're doing. And I don't want to depend on them. So what could we do differently that makes it so we're controlling our own destiny? And frankly, I knew that could involve relying only on agents and brokers for our business as a lender. We needed another avenue. And so we simply thought, let's generate our own business. We will be the first point of contact. And actually, we will then take that contact and potentially refer it to other agents. So we kind of flipped the marketing model upside down, that we were going to be the ones giving agents referrals. I can't tell you when I was early on how many really known realtors in the city of Houston right now owe Zeus Lending for the beginning of their career, because we helped them launch their career by giving them leads that they weren't
Giving
getting,
them leads.
that giving them buyers that were pre-approved in our system. And it's totally different when a loan officer who has a pre-approved buyer gives you a lead, because then you don't want to let the loan officer down. And
That's
that
huge.
changed the dynamic of our business, because we put our destiny in our hands. And through 2004, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and going through the subprime transition, which we did, and we got very lucky to make our way through that. And we've been relying on that business model ever since.
You've gone through 3 cycles, as have I. From those cycles, you learn there's always an up cycle after the down cycle. Work your
Yeah,
best during the down cycle. And there are so many things that we can be doing when we don't allow fear to take over. And most definitely, um, you've gone through those cycles. You realize they're always going to be there. And we say to our new people, get to know your lenders. They very well also meet those buyers before you do. Formulate relationships with them, because they can also send you business. It is a two-way street.
for sure.
I am just so impressed, as I've said many times today, on the success of you and your business.
Thank
I
you.
thank you for coming to our business and sending your people to Champion School of Real Estate. I have one final question, Dr. Stephen Kaufman,
Okay.
and that is, if you were to look back at your younger self and give your younger self any advice, what might that be, if any?
I think I would give I would. I think I would tell myself to relax. It's going to be okay. It's going to work out. It always works out. My mother used to always say, it always works out. Don't worry, it always works out. And the truth is, it always does work out. Whatever that
Does
looks
work
like,
out.
we never know, but it always works out. So there's no point stressing about it. It's going to work out.
It really does. And many people say, well, how do I become a Stephen Kaufman? Well, you look around and you say to yourself, what can I do that these people aren't doing? And in your case, education, education, education. Don't believe the negative self-talk that sometimes our brains want to give us, that we're not the athlete we thought we could be
Or
or
the
should be.
entrepreneur, or the business owner, or the investor, or the realtor, or the broker, or any of those things.
Exactly. And I want to leave on one last thing that impressed me so much with you, and that is one of my heroes, Tony Robbins. You were a speaker in his real estate wealth expo, and you spoke on hard money secrets, and that also was quite impressive.
Thank you.
Congratulations on
Thank you.
all of your success.
Thanks, Rita.
And ZeusLending.com. Love the name, from Greece. I love reading the story about that.
Thank
We
you.
all remember that name so well. That was a home run also.
Thank you. Well, 40 years in business, Champions, congratulations. Obviously, you're a legend in the space and you know it. And you're so humble about it, which is also very attractive. It's not easy to do anything for 40 years, even live for 40 years, much less have a business that is thriving for 40 years through 3 economic cycles. It's not easy, especially when you're in the education business, because people don't always value education when they really need it the most. And you guys have done remarkable. Obviously, you're the pinnacle of your space, and that's very respectable. And the person honored today is me, for sure. So thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you very much. And again, it was my pleasure getting to see you today, talk with you today, and I'll continue looking at all of your successes as my Facebook friend. I enjoy that very much.
Thanks. Leaving for Antarctica tomorrow. So I'll be in Antarctica for the next 2 weeks. We'll see what happens.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for including me. Bye.
Absolutely. My pleasure. This is my 40th anniversary. I opened Champion School of Real Estate in 1983 at the beginning of a down market. And we have grown Champion School of Real Estate over these 40 years to be the largest real estate school in Texas if not the USA. Large only means something if you can also put quality in every category. Quality teachers, quality textbooks, wonderful career counselors, technology that is up to date, new and trendy, brick and mortar buildings that are beautiful, our fantastic virtual online classroom, as well as online delivery systems. When I opened Champion School of Real Estate in 1983, it was a huge leap of faith. We were in a down cycle. What I've learned through our up and down cycles is that there's always a need for real estate, and people are always ready to buy residential, investment properties, buildings, warehouses, and the down cycle will soon move to an up cycle. I know for a fact that Champion School of Real Estate was built one person at a time, the way every residential, commercial property manager, loan officer, appraiser, inspector builds their business. Thanks to our many employees at Champion School of Real Estate, our fantastic teachers, our very successful students, we have the growth that we have had and enjoyed these 40 years in business. Happy birthday to Champion School of Real Estate.